By now, we've all seen them, tiny homes. We've seen the shows on HGTV. We've actually thought, hey, they are kind of cool, but have you actually considered whether or not you would live in one? If you have, the answer was probably no. But I'm talking to someone today who the answer was yes for, and he's in the middle of building his own tiny home, but with a twist. He's actually converting an old delivery truck into a studio apartment on wheels. We talk about the ups and downs of living on the road, literally living on the road where he parks every night, and how the project's coming along. So check out today's episode on minimalism while black, and why you should do a search on Instagram for the hashtag Black Van Life. Thank you for joining another episode of UNGENTRIFIED. Of course, it's your boy Kent, and today's topic is interesting. I'm glad that I stumbled upon this, and in turn am able to share it with you guys. So, before we get into what that is, one thing I ask everybody who comes on the show is, what's their favorite thing? What's on their radar at the moment? So, whatever Netflix rabbit hole you've fallen into, whatever is your jam of the moment, what's your favorite food, what book are you reading, like what's on your radar at the moment? So tell us, what's on your radar right now?
So actually, Kent, what's on my radar is actually something that's been on my mind for a few years now, but essentially, we are moving into a space where technology is starting to be integrated into our cities, and what has really captured my attention has been the integration of solar power or solar technology into the asphalt of the ground. And so imagine being able to harness solar power via the street in a city, as well as display signage. So getting rid of all signage, all demarcation for lanes, and using displays on the street. Which comes in handy when it's raining. When it's raining, it's kind of hard to see lines, especially when they're white and you have lights glaring on them. So this would especially come in handy with that. So I'm interested to see where this goes. It's a fairly new technology, and there's a company in Idaho. I believe they're doing some research now. They're getting government grants for it, but I'd love to see our streets integrated with like digital signage into the asphalt, as well as harnessing the solar energy.
Yeah, I was reading something not too long ago about, it was twofold. One, about changing the colors of our streets to like white to help with heat retention.
Yeah.
And the other thing was utilizing the streets as like solar panels, essentially, where, these are massive open spaces that are privy to the sun for, crazy amounts of hours. So why are we not utilizing those things for those opportunities? So
absolutely.
Yeah, that's definitely something worth being interested in. I hear that. So let's see. For me, what's on my radar right now? I have been chilling in my house because this is one of the few times where I'm home for more than a week. But I've been watching the show on Netflix, Dating Around.
Okay.
So it's kind of set up. I don't know if you remember the show Eliminate, or if you ever watched the show Eliminate. So it's kind of in that vein where one person goes on the same date 5 times with 5 different people. They're not all at the same time, but I think it's over like a course of a couple of nights. But they go to the same spot and have the same kind of conversations with these 5 people. And they go on the first date, and if they like the person or persons, they go on to like a second date, and then at the end you find out who they've picked like a week later for the actual like follow-up thing. So, but it's very interesting. It digs into a lot, like, differences in culture. One of the episodes is around an older guy who his wife passed away a couple years ago. So like dating as I guess you can call him senior. He's like in his 60s.
Yeah.
and like their kind of conversations versus someone who's kind of, in your 20s, which we've kind of seen those dating shows around. But it's a very interesting kind of peek into culture and society and dating in 2019. So
It sounds so interesting.
yeah, that's been dope. Also, I've been telling everybody because someone blessed me with this information to watch the documentary Abducted in Plain Sight.
I have heard of that. I
Ah,
haven't watched it yet.
okay. So I'm gonna give you the same information and warning that someone told me when you watch it, because you should definitely be watching it. It's about 90 minutes long, but you need to give yourself about 2.5 to 3 hours to actually get through it because it's so ridiculous, so outlandish. There are going to be times when you are yelling at the screen, like you're rewinding to make sure that you heard things correctly because it just doesn't make sense. Uh, it was so crazy for me. Well, somebody gave me that as the lead in. So I'm watching. I'm like, okay, things go cool. But like 20 minutes in, it completely goes off the rails. And it was so stressful to watch that I watched it in 45-minute increments. I started late one night and I was like, all right, this is too much. It's going to ruin my sleep. I'm stressed out. And I split it in half and then watched the rest the following day. But yeah, let's see if I could.
Well, now I got to watch it tonight.
Oh yeah, you definitely. This is what was given to me. I'm trying to relate it the same way, and I was like, oh, I definitely got to watch it because I've been seeing it kind of pop up in like the things you should watch and hearing people talk about how crazy it was. But I watched it that night, and I was like, oh no. Nah. So every time someone's asking me like, oh, what have you been watching? I'm telling people, watch it. So definitely put that on your radar as something to watch in the next week or so. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's ridiculous. But so you guys are probably wondering who I've been talking to for the last couple of minutes, and he's actually joining us from the topic of discussion today. So I was wasting time on the internet a couple of days ago and stumbled across this project that dealt with tiny homes. And, tiny homes is a big thing that's on a lot of people's radars as far as you see in HGTV shows about it. There's whole communities being built around tiny homes and, some people love them. A lot of people I've learned in my research hate them for property value sake. But, this is something that has come into play. And I think part of it is because this is kind of that moment where, millennials get blamed for everything. And, we're killing weddings, we're killing travel agencies, we're killing the real estate business. And I think this is one of those opportunities where we're killing something again. But you are in the midst of building a tiny home, but yours is a little bit different. So, well, before we get into that, why don't you go ahead and tell the people who you are and what you're working on right now?
Sure. My name is Vaughn Dabney, and I am the creator of the tiny home truck. And essentially, I'm building a tiny home inside of a delivery truck. I'm a Black software developer. I have my software company, Empty Box Media, and I develop mobile applications and web applications for clients all over the world.
Right. And like you said, your project of note right now is the tiny home truck project. And
Yes.
how far into it are you right now?
So last July, I left LA for being here for 3 years, and I traveled to Maryland, which is where I'm from, and set up shop at my mom's house. I got a truck, and I started building from October to December, and I'm roughly 65% done. I still need to do quite a bit more, but I wanted to be able to sleep, have running water and electricity before I left Maryland, and that's what I did. So I have a Murphy bed in here that folds out from the wall. I have running water with a water pump. I have a refrigerator freezer, and I have 300 watts of solar power coming from my solar panels.
Yeah. And this isn't Vaughn building out like an RV. No, this is an actual like studio inside of the delivery truck.
Yeah.
So let's lay some foundation.
Sure.
What inspired you to build this? What inspired you to kick off this project?
Great question, and one I get asked a lot. going back to your statement of minimalism and tiny homes, this is nothing new. Mobile living is nothing new. I think we're embracing it more because of various reasons, which I'm sure we'll get into later. But I was raised around a grandfather who always lived mobile. He never had an apartment or a home. From my 35 years of living, I've never seen that. He's always been in an RV, a camper, a truck, a van, whatever it was, and he always decked it out. He was an engineer and builder, and so me as a little boy, like I always had the engineer mind anyway. But I was so curious and fascinated by my grandfather, who currently to this day, he is about 76 years old, still lives in a camper, and he loves it. He's mobile. He can go anywhere he wants to. And so for me, this idea of minimalism, which I already kind of embraced, but taking it down to another level or a new height with this tiny home truck was something that I was just very interested in and fascinated. And my current position allows me to take risks like this and figure out, how to do it, what to do, all the pitfalls, so I can then educate other people in, doing the same thing.
Right. And I'm sure at this point in the game, you've learned that there are some pitfalls
Oh, for sure. For
to
sure.
this. So, okay, you you decide last summer that this is something that you want to do, and
Yeah.
you start telling people about it. What's their response? Is this something that's like, oh, this is Vaughn doing Vaughn, or are they like, what the hell are you
You
thinking
know,
about?
the response from me telling my friends I'm going to do this, what was initially, it was excitement. And it's always that way because it is, people have gotten to know me and they will say, if anybody could do it, it's you. So nothing out of the ordinary, but it's an entirely different concept and feeling and energy when I roll up in the truck and they actually see that I built it, right? Even if they've watched the YouTube channels and they've seen what I'm doing, when I rolled up in LA in the beginning of January, and some of my friends that I told about this saw it, they're just like, wow, like, you're doing it. Like, this is a home. Like, this is a sustainable home in which you pay no rent, you have free electricity, you got running water, and you can sleep in here. Like, this is amazing. So my friends and family were super excited, especially my grandfather. He was like, anything you need, any tips, pointers, let me know.
So has he visited the truck yet? Has he seen? I'm
No,
sure
he
you've
hasn't.
seen.
He hasn't. No, he hasn't seen it yet. But I think he's seen some of the videos on YouTube.
Right.
He is in Indiana helping. He goes to different cities and he helps nonprofits with their like website stuff.
Hmm.
So he just does that. Gets a little money. He really just does it to help. And he parks in an RV park. But when the weather gets better, I will actually drive through the country, visiting different cities, exhibiting the truck. But I'll visit family as well, and he's on the list.
Yeah. So, okay, so we talked about millennials being blamed for the death of all kinds of fields of business, and it brings us to the idea of the American dream, and it's always house and 2.5 kids and a dog, and and retire in X amount of years. We know as people who get deemed as millennials, I feel like I fall on that line where I guess what we're both elderly millennials. That's what they're referring to us now. We're on like the cusp
Yeah,
of
yeah.
the designation. But is that American dream something that's still valid for millennials? Does that work for us?
Honestly, the idea of the American dream uh, never really resonated with me. I've always been a contrarian person in in a way that I've always challenged norms and questioned societal standards. And I write about that in a book I wrote 2 years ago. Like, what what was set out to be the American dream. Grow up, go to high school, graduate high school, go to college, graduate college, get a family, get a house, have kids, retire, whatever. Like, that's the template, right? And that's not for everybody. Not everybody wants to get married. Not everybody wants to go to school. Not everybody thinks school is for them. Not everybody wants a house. Some people just want to travel and whatever. So whatever it is, I think millennials have really broken down the concept of the American dream into, okay, I'm going to make my American dream. Like, I'm going to make whatever it is that my template requires and customize it to what I need versus what our parents and grandparents needs were, because their priorities were totally different than ours.
Right.
I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think we have the most entrepreneurs out of any generation.
Yep.
And so, even with that being said, like, there's a shift in mentality that we can control our destiny versus saying, oh, as soon as I get out of school, I got to get a job because I got to support my family. Well, we're not having kids as early anymore because we're focusing on these businesses, or we're figuring out other ways to manage our families and still have these businesses because we are so entrepreneurial minded that we see something bigger than the American dream and what it was and what it was set out to be.
Right. And, for a lot of us, we may not have had kids, but we adopted, the annoying Sally Mae and her big head
Oh, for
cousin
sure.
Naviet. Like, we
For
have
sure. For
other
sure.
expenses that didn't factor in for our parents. And I think, really we are, the ultimate goal of the American dream is to live comfortable at whatever stage in financial stability you may be,
And be happy.
Right.
And be
And
happy.
and if this is the way for us to do it, if building a home where, I've seen my boy who has one, he has a tiny home. It cost him, I think, about $6,000
Hmm.
to get running, fully sustainable,
Yeah.
and done. Like you said, I don't have to worry about taxes. I don't have to worry about a mortgage payment. That money can go towards the perception of comfort for me, and not what everybody else deems as valid. And I think, we always talk about like the American dream, but I think, like you said, for us, it's our priorities are different.
Yeah.
Our 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 end goal is different. And the responsibilities at different points in life are different than they were, even 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the idea that tiny homes are a way for people to achieve that and still be happy is, I think, mind-boggling to a lot of older folks. And because we're a society that's just caught up in things. Like, we love things, whether or not they
Consumerism.
actually mean something or not. And I think in the last couple of years or so, we've seen, like you said, the emergence of tiny homes. We've seen Marie Kondo and her kind of mode to life exploding, and people just wanting to get rid of the things that don't, quote unquote, spark joy. To shout out Marie Kondo. But I think we're reassessing and taking an accounting of what success, or the American dream, means to us as individuals, and not as just this collective idea that works for everybody. But
Right.
so, before you really dug into it, what were some of the things that you had to think about and considered when planning the interior of the truck? Like, what were some of your must-haves in conception for this space?
Yeah. So, some of my must-haves for the space before I actually started building were, I wanted to shower. And it was intentional that I got a truck big enough to accommodate that, because some of the people, they get vans, which are fine, but it doesn't necessarily give you the proper room for a shower. I've seen some showers in Sprinter vans though that are pretty dope. Um,
I'm trying
so
to
I
imagine that. That's a tight space to work with.
so I have, just to give you and the listeners an idea, it's 7 feet wide and 7 feet high in the cargo area and 18 feet long. So I roughly have, with everything that I told you I have in here already, I still have 5 feet by 8 feet of space near the cab, the front cab, to put a shower and a toilet. Um, so roughly, think 30 by 30 inches for a shower, which is, plenty of space.
Mhm.
You know, average shoulder width is no more than like 2 feet. So plenty of space. I will have a water tank underneath the truck as well as inside, just in case for freezing temperatures. But yes, shower was a must. A music closet was a must. So a lot of people who know me, they know I'm a musician, and sometimes I DJ as well. So I wanted to have a closet that not only could I house my instruments and mixer, but I also wanted to integrate plugs into the wall. So like I could plug a 1/4 inch jack into the wall and start playing my guitar, or I can plug in the RCA plugs and start DJing, right? So that integration is super important, and music is always a part of my feng shui. It's always a part of my space, and you can expect to see a speaker, you can expect to see an instrument. Um, I think those two things were like deal breakers. I need and last thing, a comfortable bed. You know, I didn't want a twin, and I didn't want a 6 inch mattress. So that's part of the reason why I built a Murphy bed, because it folds up into the wall to conserve space, but also it allows me to have a full sized mattress. So I have a full mattress that's 8 inches thick. Shout out to Tufton Needle. I don't know if we can say brands on here,
Yeah,
but they
you can. Shout out to
tough.
Tufton Needle.
Shout out to Tufton Needle, because their mattress was full size, $350, came in a box, and you know I come from a Tempur-Pedic background, okay. And when I tell you this mattress is super comfortable and comparable to my $2,000 Tempur-Pedic mattress, I wish I had known about them sooner. So everybody listening, if you're looking for a bed, try Tufton Needle. They're, I mean, excellent mattress. I haven't had any bad nights of sleep in the 2 months that I've been living in my truck so far.
Yeah.
So,
And that's crazy because when someone would think of, okay, home inside of a vehicle, even if it was like a mid-size RV, you wouldn't think full-size bed is happening in there. So you
right.
are able to make that happen and do so comfortably
Yeah,
in that. Yeah, that's crazy.
I know.
So, and then your job, it requires you to be connected all of the time.
Yes.
So, how are you making it happen? Are you just doing like, Wi-Fi hotspot off the phone, or are you getting service from somewhere else? How are you making that happen for you?
Yeah, so for connectivity, I do have a hotspot, as well as I have a hotspot on my phone and a mobile hotspot through Verizon. So I use those, and when I'm out and about, I still do like to go to the coffee shop and work and get work done. And so, you know, the coffee shop always has Wi-Fi,
Hmm.
but mainly just my hotspots. And, you know, I watch Hulu and Netflix at night sometimes before I go to bed or while I'm working. But I do have connectivity. That was another thing that was like, okay, what's the best service that I found has the most coverage when I'm traveling through the country, in which I can still be connected and share and talk with people and have my connectivity for software.
Right. So you mentioned your former $2,000 mattress. What happened to that and all of your other possessions as you moved into the tiny home truck?
Great question. So with my possessions before I started this, I just got a public storage, and I'm actually using half of it. So I got a no, 5x10 storage, and I'm literally only using half of it, and that was everything that I
Oh
had.
wow!
So
So you were already kind of living
yeah,
in a
I didn't
minimalist
have
space.
much. Yeah, I didn't have much anyway. I don't have that much in my life, and so you know, I was just downsizing and I was selling things up to that point, and then by the time I was getting ready to do this, you know, and I decided on it, it was a no brainer. Put everything in storage. I don't pay that much a month, and I'll pull most of that stuff back out once I'm done building, because it'll most of it will fit in here, and so I can imagine I might have maybe one or two boxes left if I can't fit everything. So yeah, I mean the mattress is in there as well, and I'm actually trying to sell that. So if anybody looking for a Timber meeting, willing to give you a break on that. But yeah, I mean, you know, like you said, we're such consumers, and we buy things that we think we need, which is valid at the time, right? Because we think we need them, and then
Hmm.
we realize like we really don't, and we could live without these things. Or, you know, my motto is like, if you haven't used it in 6 months, and it's not one of those things that is regularly used or has a vital place in your life, like get rid of it, because you can probably get another one, whatever it is. You know, if it doesn't have any sentimental value. But I've gone through things. I've moved a lot in my life, and I've sold things, and I've purchased them again. You know, like I don't like clutter, and I don't like my space to be cluttered because it clutters my mind. and I need that for processing information. So if I can have my space decluttered and easy and simple, it lends itself to efficiency, and it also creates a space in which I can better help people and myself.
So, what's one thing you felt like, or you feel like you're giving up in transitioning into this space?
Hmm. Um, I think I think one thing I don't know if it's really giving up versus a a shift in operation, right? So with our daily lives, when you go home at night, when you if you're out and about, you don't think about where you're going. You're going home. You're going to your bed and you're going to go to sleep. So with what I'm doing, I have to think about where I'm at, where the truck is at, like because I'm not in one spot forever, right?
Right.
If that were the case, I'd get some land and build a container home, but I have to park the truck in different locations, and so that also changes my environment. That changes how I operate. I'm a super efficient person, and so too many variables lead me to be inefficient, and that gets frustrating, and then I can't do what I need to do. So it's like I've been staying up in the valley in LA for weeks at a time because it's easy. There's no meters up there, and I can just relax. And that allows me to get my work done daily without having to come back and feed a meter after 2 hours or 4 hours. Um, so it's a it creates more variables that I need to think about, but those variables can still be standardized. I know this is very low level speaking, but once I can standardize my operation and I can function, when we live in apartments or houses, our daily routine is already standardized. We don't have to think about those things. We just do, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where I say I think it's just a shift in operation that I'm giving up my standardized operation that I'm used to, that everybody else is used to, that has the stationary home or apartment.
Right, yeah, because you have now given up the concept of stasis. Like you have to consider or put brain space into, okay, can I stay here for an extended amount of time?
Yes,
Or, I may start the day here and end the day here. Or
right.
if I stay here too long, I may have to deal with, X, Y, and Z, where, that it's I don't know. It might be almost be anti-minimalism because now you've added extra steps in your thought process for the day. So you've gotten rid of the material clutter, but now you have some mental clutter that you have to consider.
Yeah,
Um,
but I still think it can be consolidated or compartmentalized in a way that allows me to then kind of standardize a different type of operation.
mhm,
And once you don't have to think about your operation, then you can proceed as normal.
right. And then this is something that has worked for you before. You say, you're someone who's moved around a lot. That
Yeah, yeah,
doesn't, bother you as much. Some people really need that concept of this is where it starts, this is where it ends.
yeah.
And, that level of comfort. So, and this is actually perfect timing that we're hearing that in the background.
Sorry about
So,
that.
no, it's perfect. Uh, you really are exposed to the elements more than most people would be now because as comfortable as the home may be, it's still maybe a couple of inches of material between you and the bustle of whatever day is going on around you. So do you feel a little bit more exposed than you did before?
Initially in the first few weeks, I felt very exposed, being in the truck, and all the sounds. When cars go by, the truck kind of wavers a little bit. I don't know if that is just because my truck is aluminum or drivers drive too fast in LA, but um, everybody's racing here. Uh, but the first few weeks, it was a little tough. Like I've had an interesting life, and I've been robbed before multiple times throughout my life. So Um, when I invite people into my space, that means I trust them. And one thing is safety, right? And so, let's just jump right in. The van life movement is huge. You search for the hashtag van life on Instagram or anywhere,
Mhm.
and you see hundreds of thousands of pictures come up, and none of them look like me, and
Right.
none of them look like you, right? And the elephant in the room is safety, because as a man of color, I do have to worry about my personal safety along with my possessions, right? So some of these couples out here, um, they probably are just worried about their possessions or getting stuff stolen, which is valid. However, I'm also worried about getting pulled over by police. I'm also worried about people in the middle of Texas, part of some racist organization looking at me, knowing that I live in this truck, and now they want to come bother me, right? Like that. Those are things that I have to worry about that my white counterparts who are doing this don't. And that is something that I want to talk about furthermore in some upcoming episodes on the YouTube channel. But that is something that is huge on my mind, and the conversation of what forms of protection should I get, do I need, in order to not be naive. I'm a believer in communication and using my words, but that can't always work, and it doesn't always work. So, um, what do I do? Again, another conversation, but that is absolutely on my mind.
Right. And no, no, let's make it this conversation.
Okay,
So
all right.
we're talking about safety. Not too long ago, you were robbed, or
Yes,
there was an attempted robbery on you, while you've been living in the space. So tell us about that. How did that go down?
sure. So again, like I lived in LA for 3 years prior to me building this truck out, and I ride my bike all over the city. And there have been a few times where I've left my bike out locked up overnight, and it's been fine, and not in the best of areas either. So when I got back to LA, it was my first week back, and I put my bike outside, locked it up right outside of my truck, and I went to this party that my boy was having, and then one of my friends, she wanted to see the truck afterwards. And so we walk back to the truck. Bike is still there. We go inside and we're talking, and I hear metal outside, like metal clinging. I'm like, hold on, I need to go outside and make sure my bike is not being stolen. So I open up the door, and they didn't hear me, open up the back door, but I open up the door. Two guys on bikes, two homeless guys on bikes, are dismantling my bike. And so the front tire was gone. The handlebars were hanging by the brake line, and the back seat, my seat was gone. So I walk out. I'm gonna give you the edited version. I walk out. I'm like, "Yo, are you guys trying to steal my bike?" And I was in disbelief, and I was extremely angry. I feel like one of the worst violations you can have as a person is somebody robbing you, but you watching it,
Right.
and
Yeah,
and
that's got to
you
be
know
different. Most people, we get jacked, and we walk up and see the after
you
effects of
see
it. We
the
don't actually
aftermath.
see it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you don't see it in action, and so me seeing it in action, I was in disbelief, but I was also livid. And so I walk out, and they're like, no, no, here you go, here you go, here's your tire back, here's your tire back. So I snatched the tire out of his hand. And I'm like, look, where's my seat? He's like, we don't know, we don't know, we don't know. I said, all right, y'all don't know? Nobody's going anywhere until you put my seat back. And I lifted up the back, the videos on the Instagram channel, but I lifted up one of the guy's back tires. I was like, you guys aren't going anywhere until I get my seat back. And they could tell that I meant business. And one of the other guy threw the bike wrench over to the guys whose bike I was holding, and he's like, all right, I'm gonna give you your seat. The seat was already on his bike. He already had it on his bike.
Oh, so he replaced the
I,
seat.
I, I was it was incredulous. I was like, it's already on his bike. So he replaced his seat with mine, and he proceeded. He got off his bike and took the seat off, gave it back. Now a little backstory. I'm developing an app. Well, there's an app out that I developed called Money, and essentially I created it as a way to give money to homeless people without having cash on you.
Mm.
And so, without getting into detail, I'm working for homeless people. I'm working to get people who want to reintegrate into society who are homeless or disadvantaged. I'm working to get them back in. And so, after he gave me my seat, I calmed down and I said, "Look, you've got people out here that care about you. I'm one of them. I'm working to help you." I said, "But you can't come here and do things like this. This is my only mode of transportation outside of, the city, and you're here dismantling it and making it harder for me." I said, "So I need you just to think about what you're doing and who you might be affecting, because I am working for you." And I got their names. I asked them where they lived on Skid Row, and they told me, and I shook their hands like it was amicable. But when I came out of that truck, I was I was heated, man. Like it could have been bad. I mean, it could have been bad for me too. I assessed the situation when I came out, and I could tell they didn't want any problems. But um, it was a moment for me to kind of just talk to them, because I know everybody's going through something. Everybody, and these are the people that I'm trying to help. So I took a moment to kind of calm down and figure out what their story was, and it ended well. I have my bike back. I mean, it's fixed, it's good, but I don't leave it outside anymore.
So, okay. When you walk back into the truck, what's the
Yeah.
look on your friend's face after all of that went down?
So she's like, as horrible as that was for them trying to take your bike, I feel like they needed to hear that from you. And I'm a huge believer in things happening as they should and the universe conspiring to make a way. So I absolutely 100% agreed. It didn't bring down my anger, but I 100% agreed that they probably needed to hear that from me. Um, so she was like, "Look, you handled that like you were supposed to. I'm proud of you." But yeah, she couldn't believe it was happening.
Yeah, I can imagine like maybe a couple of minutes before you heard the metal, you're talking about how dope the home is, and she's like, "Yeah, it is dope. I didn't expect this when I walked in." Then
Yeah.
you have that interaction, and her whole idea about the experience was probably like, yeah, about that." So let's talk about some other downsides to what you're doing. Robberies
Sure.
aside,
Hmm.
the bathroom experience.
Yeah.
Are you doing like composting? What's the situation you have or the plan you have?
So my plan, it's been a toss up between my plan for the bathroom has been a toss up between like a composting toilet and one that it's called the Lavio, which is it's an electric toilet that basically it's a bag, and it creates a small pocket, and so after you go to the bathroom, you flush, and the bag gets dropped down and twisted, and so it creates another pocket for you to go to the bathroom. So no smell, um, easy to use. Excuse me, easy to use. It's half the cost of the Nature's Head composting toilet, which is 1,000.
Hmm.
And the only downside is that I don't think the bags are biodegradable, and
Okay.
that is an issue. I'm trying to be as efficient and eco-friendly as possible. However, and like I'm not willing to sacrifice practicality.
Right. Right.
So I just need to see what I can do. The Nature's Head has high reviews, but again, it's $1,000. Um, so I'm just trying to figure that out. In the meantime, one of the things that I took for granted was when you get up in the morning and you go to the bathroom. Everybody does this, and you don't think about it. You just get up and go.
Right.
And so my first night that I spent in my truck, I got up and I'm like, "Oh, oh, this is uh this is new. Um, what am I gonna do?" And so basically, I got dressed and I had to find a Starbucks. And the concept of bottles did not occur to me until the second night. And I'm like, I'm just gonna have to go back to old school, riding in the car with your grandma, and you got to go to the bathroom, but there's no bathroom in sight, so you pee in a bottle. And literally, I have amassed, not not used, but I have a bunch of empty water bottles,
Just
like
ready.
big jugs, yeah, big jugs, just ready, because that is a convenience that I think a lot of people overlook, and it's tough, man. And I think my next purchase will be the toilet because of that. But it's tough, and when I start dating someone, um, she's probably not going to be down for. I mean, not to say there isn't, but she probably won't be down for peeing in a bottle.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
so I'm trying to make that as comfortable as possible. I will have a toilet eventually, either way, but for now it's been bottles and everything else I need to do. I have a gym membership at Planet Fitness that I take my showers there and I work out and I use a bathroom for all my needs. But I do it that way
Yeah.
for now.
And thankfully, you're in the land of 24-hour everything. So,
Yeah, yeah.
that's one benefit. I don't know if you could do that in like the backwoods of Montana.
Well,
Well,
the
then,
backwoods of Montana, the forest is going to become
right.
my place.
But yeah, so that's definitely a benefit. Location factors into that as well. But this the labio thing you're talking about, as you were explaining, I was like, oh, so it's basically a diaper genie for adults.
For
Because
adults. Yep.
so wait a minute, when do you have to like replace the cartridges or the plastic wrap? Like how long
I
is it?
think I think the bag uh can handle. I could be way off. I think like 15 flushes,
Oh,
so
okay.
15 twists before you have to change it. And the package that I want comes with like 5 cartridges. And I was looking at how many flushes people use throughout the day, even with 2 people, and 15 seems to be. I think that's the right number, but yeah, I mean, when you think about it, I'm not in my truck all day,
Right,
right?
right.
So I'm out in restaurants or cafes or whatever, and I can use the restroom there. So at home, it's mostly like morning and night that I'm going to be using it. So maybe like 2 or 3 times a day. That should last me roughly a week if we're talking about 15 flushes. And if we multiply that by 5, that's roughly a month and a week. That one cartridge, or the 5 cartridges will last me. So I probably need to re up every month.
Right, right. And you brought up another potential downside to living in a tiny space is dating.
Yeah.
So, have you talked to anyone who's kind of dealt with that, and what was their approach, or has it been harder for people to find people who are open to the idea of the van life or the tiny home life?
So I can be very persuasive, but no, I mean, it's part of the test, right? Like finding a woman who is as excited about my tiny home truck as I am.
Hmm.
And I mean, everybody that I sees the truck loves it. Now, would they live in here? Not necessarily. So I've come across a couple women though, like that have been genuinely excited, and one even wants one for herself, which is incredible to me. Like I at least have to entertain that, right? So my test has been like, if I find a woman who loves this, I gotta entertain it. Let's go out on a couple dates and see where this goes, because I would love to share that adventure with somebody. And late last year, I was in the Bay Area for Black Enterprises Tech Connects event, and I linked up with Armand Carr, who is a radio host up in the Bay Area, and was on his show. And he's like, "Ladies, how do you feel about this brother building his home in his truck, and when he comes to pick you up for a date, he's actually taking you home at the same time?" I thought that was so funny because I never thought about it like that, but literally that's what's happening. Um, but I mean, like whoever I decide to date, and whoever decides to date me has got to love this. And then this is not forever. This is at least for a year, but this is not forever. Um, but it's a personality type, right? It's someone who can go with the flow and who can make money remotely,
Hmm.
or doesn't require a specific location to make money, because there are so many adventures to be had with something like this. Even parking the truck somewhere and traveling internationally for a month, right?
Right.
No rent to think about, nothing, nothing here to think about paying and spending all of that money into travel. Like that is so mind blowing to me, because we spend $2,000 or $3,000 a month for 12 months for 3 to 4 years. Do the math. You're walking away with nothing when you leave that apartment.
Right.
You know, so it just makes sense to me.
Yeah. So, all right, we talked about downsides, and I was thinking about, okay, well, what are the upsides? And I was like, well, if you go out one night, you can go out and get drunk and not have to worry about driving home because home
Right.
is there. You
Home
could,
is there.
yeah, you could post up right there. Um, what else was I thinking? I was like, well, it would be really dope to have, like, you could set up shop at a park and just chill for the day and have a barbecue right there at
Absolutely.
home.
Absolutely.
Uh and there's the opportunity, like, I mean, I don't know if we've advanced that far in van life, but if you did want to travel and go, away for a month, you could, post up at a spot and Airbnb out the the tiny
Yeah.
home while
Absolutely.
you're away. Of course, you just don't give them the car keys, but
Absolutely.
uh,
Absolutely.
that's an option too. Yeah, it's there's definitely both. There's some things on both sides of the experience, but
Yeah.
okay, now that you're 60% into it, what's something that you came into the project thinking that you knew, but now you were completely wrong about?
I think something that I thought I knew, or rather took advantage of, was the power consumption. So being in your home, we just plug up stuff, right?
Hmm.
We have no idea what the power consumption is of our laptop computers, the fans, heaters, space heaters, especially, um, whatever it is. We don't have that concept in a way in which that makes sense to us. And so, I went in developing my electrical system and figuring out how much battery power I needed and how much solar power I needed, and making those systems work together. However, things don't get real until you're in the truck and it's 25 degrees outside
Right.
and you need heat. And then you start to think about, oh, I'll just get a space heater.
No,
No, you
you
won't. No, you
won't.
won't.
No, you won't.
Because that space heater has 1,500 watts of power, and you'll be able to run it for a max of 20 minutes. On my current system, I could run a 1,500 watt space heater for roughly 45 minutes before it would drain my battery. And now there's things you can do as far as like getting more battery power, getting more solar panels, and that would solve the problem. But it puts in perspective how much power we actually use when we're in the home, power and water. Like how much we go through and waste so much of that just leaving a bathroom light on, or leaving a kitchen light on, or you know, in the living room we have our lights on. We contribute to a lot of power waste in on the grid, when it comes to apartments and homes. And so it's just made me much more conscious. Like even something as simple as like brushing my teeth, right? Like I put the water on real quick to wet my toothbrush and I turn it off. I brush my teeth. I brush my teeth with the water off anyway, but I brush my teeth and then I, do my thing. I spit out the toothpaste and make sure everything's out. Then I run the water real quick to wash it down the sink. Then I wash off my toothpaste, but I mean on the toothbrush. But it's a really quick process, and I don't use that much water. But I didn't used to brush my teeth like that. Like I was leisure with it,
Right.
or leisurely with it. So it just building your own systems and seeing actually how much battery power you have as a percentage and how much power things use, it just puts things in perspective to not be wasteful and to really be mindful of the power consumption that you use.
Right. So, speaking of power and consumption, how much are your monthly expenses looking to be for maintaining the tiny home truck?
Great question. So I was actually going through my expenses the other day, and on a on like a max scale, I'm probably looking at like 1,000.
A
So,
thousand.
yep, $1,000 for food and water and gas. So this truck eats up gas. I'm actually thinking about converting to an electric system um, in the future, like maybe a few months from now. They have electric conversion systems.
Hmm.
So thinking about that, but for now, so gas, water, and food, roughly 300 of that per month, and then I have my expenses for like my mostly business expenses. So hosting, internet, um, my phone bill, insurance, and then Hulu, Netflix, my storage, GitHub, my whatever it is for Adobe Creative Suite. So
So that's a
that's
thousand for everything it takes to survive as Vaughn.
yeah, yeah.
Wow.
hmm So, and again, that's on a max scale, right? Like I have $100 for food. I probably won't spend that in a month, but I have $100 for food, and I have $30 for water and $200 for gas. That means filling up basically 2.5 times. But I don't drive that much with the truck, so I probably won't reach that 200. And realistically, my monthly total will probably be around 800.
Mhm. And budget wise for the entire project, what's the amount of money that's going to take you to reach the completion of this project?
Sure. So the amount of money to complete this is probably going to be around 20,000.
Oh wow.
Mm-hmm.
I was not expecting that's low.
Yeah. So basically, the truck, and that's partially due because of the truck. The truck was 10,000,
Hmm.
and it was in great condition. I got it from Indiana, and just really good condition. And so the truck was 10. So minus that, the build out's probably going to cost me 10, 10, 11. So far, I've spent 5,000 on the build out, 4,500 on the build out, and I would say another five to finish. Maybe not even that much because I have some materials and items in here that are not being used yet. So it might not even be that much, but I'd say 20K just to be safe. And after that, I mean, no rent, free electricity. Come on,
Right.
it's a no brainer. You spend more than that in a year on rent.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned that it's not a long term thing for you, but
Yeah,
what is the end game for this? What's the long term goal for the truck?
yeah. So long term for me is actually container home. So getting some land and building a container home, which again will be sustainable. So solar, semi off grid if I can, or completely off grid if I can. Um, the truck, people have actually reached out to me on the Instagram page and asked if they could put a deposit down. And so I'm saying, like, what do you mean put a deposit down? And they're like, yeah, I want my own. I want my own truck, or I want my own van. Can you build it for me? And so that was something that, I mean, I'm an entrepreneur. I see things, I see opportunities in everything, but I wasn't even in that mindset for this. But there are people that want this. There are people that are willing to pay and put deposits down on their own tiny home or truck or van. And that would be something that I would like to explore. I have a friend in DC doing the same thing with a Sprinter van. So we talked about actually linking up after we're done building and kind of exploring some templates and standardizing designs around different vans to build it out for different people. Um, so as far as the van or the truck is concerned, uh, that would be the move. But as far as me, ultimately, I want a container home. And if for the listeners out there, for yourself, Ken, if you haven't, go on Pinterest and search for container homes, and you will see some amazing things. I mean, it's basically like Legos, but Containers are sustainable. They're cheap. You can get a 40-foot container for $2,000 to $4,000 each, and you have roughly 8 by 40 or 8 by 53 square feet. You stack those on top of each other, make 3 levels, put 2 at the bottom. Now you roughly have 300 to 400 square feet per floor, and you've paid peanuts.
Mm-hmm.
You insulate the inside, put everything you want on the inside, connect it to the grid, water system, whatever. You've now paid $200,000 to $300,000, and that's on a high scale. $200,000 to $300,000 for this home that trumps any $500,000 or $1 million home near it.
Right.
You
And it's
know,
funny because people pay for the the aesthetic of a container home design.
exactly,
And pay, like you said, pay ridiculous amounts of money for that aesthetic, but you could actually do that on your own for, like you said,
absolutely
pennies on the dollar.
pennies,
Yeah,
pennies. So that's the
so,
that's the ultimate goal.
so the long term goal is Pimp My Ride 2.0, where the ride is the home. So I'll go ahead and send you the invoice when when the show pops off. So before we get out of here, you talked about a couple of places where people can get inspiration for this. You mentioned the van life hashtag. You mentioned Pinterest. Are there any spaces in particular, any spaces that deal around like Black minimalism or uh, people of color looking for this? I know you mentioned it was hard to find a lot of people that look like you. Have you found any spaces yet?
So I'm actually working hard to create that space. So instead of searching for van life, search for Black van life. And every one of my posts has the hashtag in it, on YouTube as well as Instagram, because I'm trying to contribute content to that hashtag. Because if you search for it, well, if you had searched for it before I started posting, you might see a handful of posts. But I'm using that to hashtag everywhere for that specific reason. Also, I have connected with, not in person yet, but I have connected with a few people on Instagram building their own vans or trucks, um, and most of them are actually Black women. And so one is down in, her name is Nasali. She's down near Crenshaw in South LA, and then there's I can't remember her name right now. She's in Santa Monica. She has her own van, and there's 2 women up in, I believe, Portland. They took an old Hertz truck and cut off the top and kind of like built up, so it's like an extended roof type thing out of corrugated metal. Like it looks like a shipping container on the top, but they're doing their thing. So I've actually made it a point to connect with them, and we've just been like vibing off energy off each other and supporting each other. Obviously, Afro Minimalist on Instagram. She's a friend of mine, and she always talks about minimalism and how to get to it. You have Brown Kids on Instagram, 2 friends of mine, and they're out in Baltimore. I think they're moving again, though. They're in Baltimore right now. They always express and show people how to live minimally and spend wisely. And then yeah, Black Minimalist on Instagram, which is BLK Minimalist on Instagram. They're a dope feed as well. But like I said, I'm actually trying to curate that space now with what I'm doing, because there is not a lot of content. There's very little content when it comes to like building a space that is minimal. Like living minimally is fine, but there's no content as far as being Black or being a person of color, Black or brown, and building your space and creating your space to be minimal, or doing what I'm doing. So, like you said in the beginning, that's one of the main reasons why I'm doing this, because the representation is not there on HGTV. It's not there on Netflix. It's not there on these networks, and we need more representation. It's not there on Instagram or Facebook. So that's why I'm doing this. And that's why I'm sharing every step of the way. So you can see from day one what I did. You can see my mistakes. You can see where I'm at now. You can see what I'm dealing with and the struggles, and listening to, the Ungentrified podcast and listening to the things that I'm going through, so you can avoid those mistakes and you can produce better and faster and stronger, with people like myself and these other van lifers who are black and brown, kind of paving the way.
And it's good to know that there are people making this happen. So, shout out to you. You listed a long list of resources. So if anyone's, looking to pursue that or to find out more about it, there's the fire is lit and it's starting to spread. So it's definitely people
Yeah,
there. You mentioned your YouTube channel. Please, let's just go through the whole list of
sure.
where they can find out about the project and what you have going on.
Sure. So the YouTube channel for the Tiny Home Truck is youtube.com/ the Tiny Home Truck. And on Instagram, it is Tiny Home Truck. And the website is tinyhometruck.com. The website is a little barren right now. I've just been super busy focusing on the YouTube episodes because I feel like those are the most important. But I will have some content on there. One good thing to note on the website is that I do have a running and live spreadsheet. It's a Google Doc spreadsheet that you can see everything that I've purchased so far, along with the prices, the links on where to get it, and how much my current total is so far. So some of the things you were asking are on this spreadsheet. You can literally see every item that I've purchased to date, and things that I want to get that I haven't purchased yet. But this will help anybody out in terms of like pricing out things and what I used for my system and how I did it. On the YouTube channel, I'm literally walking through the planning phases to the building phases to living. So you can see everything and what I used, how I used it, how I planned it. I even have an episode dedicated to my designing of the electrical system, the plumbing system, the designs of the truck before I even started building. So you can literally go through my content and begin, if you wanted to. Like you can. I'm giving you a launch pad. I'm giving you a foundation to work off of.
And people, it may not be there long because when we do Pimp My Ride 2.0, we may have to take down that. That's intellectual property there. We may have to take that down. So take advantage of it now while it's free game out there for you. And correct me if I'm wrong. When you're done, I think you mentioned it. You're planning to go on like a tour a little bit, and share the house with people around the country.
Yes. So I want to do like mini housewarming parties in different cities, and I'll have my friends in here, and we'll break bread and imbibe and drinks, and like just vibe out. But I also want to just share, like just pull up to an event or a storefront and have people be able to come in and ask me questions and be curious and touch things and you know watch how things work. I want that. I want that educational piece, and I also want to go to schools as well and show some of these kids like what I did, and especially children that I might look like or they look like me. That's super important. So I have, Chicago is definitely on the list. DC, Atlanta, New York for sure. Here in LA, Portland. So, just various cities. But I do plan on traveling the country again. I did this 2 years ago, as far as like traveling the country for 2 months, in my car. So I want to kind of do that again with the truck and just let people be curious and take part in panels and whatever, in workshops. If it's showing people how to build, if it's just answering questions about like what I'm doing, I'm 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 always trying to make myself accessible because I have a wealth of knowledge and it does me no good if I can't share it. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate to like hit me up on whatever channel you seem to be on, and I will try my best to get back to you because the most rewarding thing for me is when I learn something and I can impart that knowledge on somebody else. I literally like to learn so I can do that act. So use me, like whatever knowledge I have, I will share it.
Dope, dope. So pop-up house parties
Yep.
coming
Yep.
soon too.
Absolutely.
So, Vaughn, thank you so much for coming through, chopping it up, sharing what you've been going through,
Absolutely.
and and this amazing project that you've taken on. And yeah, I think it's dope. I'm definitely tuned in now to watch the remaining couple of months and to see how it turns out. I'm definitely coming to a pop-up house party
Thank you.
when you roll through
I
Atlanta,
got
or
you, man.
if I happen to be in the same city.
I got you.
Yeah, that's dope. And you've told us where we can find you, so definitely be on the lookout for Vaughn on all of the outlets. But
Make sure you
definitely,
subscribe. Make sure you
yes,
subscribe to my YouTube. That's the most important thing for me is subscriber count. So if you can subscribe to the channel, and I promise I'll give you good content.
yeah, and you got time to catch up because he's 60% through, so you got time to catch up before the end of the season, before the finale.
For sure.
So, of course, thank you guys for giving me your ears again. If you love what you've heard, and I hope you did, because it was a dope episode, you should definitely love it. Do me a favor and subscribe on wherever you listen to podcasts, whether it's Apple, Spotify, wherever that may be, wherever your ears are, go ahead and hit subscribe, because those numbers also help me out as well. If you really loved it, tell somebody about it. That also helps me immensely. And if you are just completely smitten by the content, you can go to Apple Podcasts or wherever it may be and leave a review. Stars are nice, but written words are even better. So please do your thing. Vaughn, like I said, thank you so much for coming through live from the tiny home truck. And we're definitely going to be keeping an eye out on what you come up with at the end. So
Thank you.
yeah, appreciate you. And you guys, I'll check you guys on the next episode. Peace.